Welcome to the Truth Expedition. I'm your co-host, Mark Bashofsky. You've tuned into the program where we dig for truth in this insane clown show of a world where the fact-checkers lie and the government and the media propagandize you and me, the citizens of this amazing world. Once again, joined by amazing co-host, Gunnar Ballstead. How you doing, Gunnar?
Fantastic as always. We are stoked for today's show. We're going to talk Third Temple politics, Abrahamic eschatology, global events, and we're going to try to make sense of this crazy world that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. Our guest is Adam Green. He's an author and a podcaster who hosts No More News. That's KNOW, No More News. You can find that on Rumble. It's a channel that explores religious prophecy and geopolitical events. Adam is currently authoring a book called The Jesus Deception, which discusses the origins of Christianity and its role in Old Testament prophecy. Adam's focus seeks to resolve confusion around religious dogma and attempts to bring peace through understanding. While these topics may be a bit controversial for some folks, we think it is of ultra importance in preventing nuclear World War III. It's an altruistic goal worthy of our efforts. Thank you so much, Adam Green, for joining us on the Truth Expedition.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate the introduction. Very kind of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just jump.
Very well said.
Thanks. Gunnar wrote that. I'll give the credit there to Gunnar. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. The audience, I'm sure some folks that are watching do know who you are, but what's your background? What brought you into this type of research, this field of work?
I started making videos on No More News almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years later this year. And the focus has primarily been Zionism, which is Christian Zionists that has such influence in America with all of our politicians, and then, end times Judaism as well. And Kabbalah, secrets, that type of stuff is what I've been covering. I cover news, religion, and politics, basically, is the best way to put it. And the top religion that dominates the West is the Judeo-Christian value West, the Judeo-Christian Islam, also the Abrahamic paradigm. It's all the God of Israel. I've been focused on the theological conquest of religion, theological warfare recently of Judaism for Gentiles, which is Christianity and Islam. And I appreciate you guys for having this on. It's very controversial because there's a lot of Christians in this sphere, on the internet, in the independent media. They kind of have a monopoly and will shame anybody that talks to people about this. So I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Yeah, so actually, I'll just one comment when it comes to the Zionist stuff. So I'm on the Minnesota GOP state executive board, one of 15 people I represent my congressional district. And I made some comments about, 9/11 and, could the Mossad been involved? And, man, I got censured and laid out on the rug for saying that stuff. I didn't back down, but that's the kind of environment I'm in. There's they control politics, definitely. Down to the state level. But go ahead, Gunnar.
So I know that you kind of got your entry into this in 9/11. What stuck out to you on 9/11? What kind of inconsistencies led you to believe that it may have been a false flag? And what's your experience with Christopher Bolin, the true patriot? Where is he now, do you think, and what is his current role in the 9/11 truth movement?
Okay, a few questions there. First one, 9/11. Maybe I should start from the end. What first made me question 9/11 was probably like the documentaries and the stuff online. Reading Bolin's books, Solving 9/11. Also, early on it was like Ryan Dawson videos, and just seeing all the fingerprints like all over, all of the Zionists involved. There was it was a huge thing. 9/11 truth was a huge thing on the internet with viral videos, and so it was all that got me interested in it. And then Bolin's book, I did a few interviews with Bolin. One of them, they got a lot of views on YouTube. One of them had like 600,000 views. And but I haven't talked to him for a few years, actually. I haven't seen him doing any interviews. I think he might have retired. I'm not sure if he's having health issues or something, but as far as I know, he's just with his wife out in Europe still. Can't remember which country, actually. Sweden, Switzerland, something like that.
Adam, you
Yeah, I hope he's doing well, but it's been a while since I've spoken to him.
same here. Yeah, I think he's obviously been very influential and a huge powerhouse in this awakening. Adam, you toured Palestine several years ago. Can you talk us through that experience, what you saw, what it felt like?
Mhm. We did one day in East Jerusalem when we first got there, and then the rest of the days was in the West Bank, Ramallah. It's like the capital of Palestine, West Bank, the most modern city probably. And we saw the wall, we saw refugee camps, we went to the Palestinian museums, Yasser Arafat Museum, learned about the history. We talked to like the local what how would I describe her? The man and woman that have like a musical house where they train music to Palestinian kids in the West Bank, and talk to them and all of their terrible experiences that they had with the IDF. We learned about all the various ways that they're like oppressing and messing with around the settlements in the West Bank that they're building, and the clashes that are happening there. We went to Hebron, the old city, Hebron, where there's the cave of the patriarchs, that it was split in half after an extremist Israeli shot a bunch of Muslims, and then they split it in half and gave half to the Jews and half to the Muslims. We went there in Hebron. We saw where there was like there's one of the probably the oldest market streets in that area, one of the oldest cities in the world, an old market, and then above it there's all of these chain link fence, because there's occupiers there that went right down in the middle of the city, and they'll throw stuff down at people on the street, so they had to protect it with a thing. Those are a few. It was 2018, so it's been 6 years about since I've been there, and it went by quick. So
Did you meet any Palestinian Christians while you were there?
yes, yeah.
And how
it was like a tour of Christian sites all over the West Bank and East Jerusalem. So many churches, all the old churches, Church of Nativity. I think it's all the top ones. There was one where like a Eastern Orthodox church, we went down in the basement. It's supposed to be Jacob's Well, like a famous site where Jacob's Well, where Jesus was also. So they claim. So yeah, lots of Palestinian, because we went to a lot of churches. The church where Jesus was supposedly born, everybody was waiting in line, and there's like a little spot where everybody would go down and touch and like cry or like kiss this spot where Jesus was supposedly born in Bethlehem.
Amazing. So you didn't get to Gaza at all?
No.
So what, a lot of Zionists that I happen to know, they have this view, this perspective of the Palestinians as, like the IDF will say, they're snakes born from monsters. I mean, what did you think of the Palestinian people? Were they kind? Do you feel like they all want to kill all the Jews? I mean, what kind of feel did you get in that way?
No, not at all. None of that. Yeah, very kind. They want peace. They're tired of being oppressed. But no, in fact, like they're almost too soft. They should be criticizing Judaism more, but they almost like won't criticize Judaism. They'll say it's just Zionism, it's not Judaism, and really that's because Judaism is kind of at the foundation of Christianity and Islam, that they can't really like condemn the whole premise, the whole foundation.
So where do you think that we are headed from today? Okay, so October 7th happened. Obviously, that was a big event. Maybe Israel was waiting for an event such like this. Maybe it was not an organic event. It may have had some intelligence
Was it
influence.
A false flag?
It may have been a false flag.
We know that Hamas was already like intelligence backed, and Israel helped start it, and then Netanyahu it was his strategy to continue to prop them and fund them up for this very reason, for something like this to happen, so they could have the pretext to take all of Gaza.
It does seem like it was a false flag, and it does seem like it was an event that was designed to go in and take over the lands that were promised as Greater Israel. What do you think is going to happen here with the red heifer? There has been a lot of discussion about this. There's a lot of misconceptions. There are 5 red heifers that are apparently ready. 3 of them are at least the age required. There are preparations being made. Now, a lot of these are being made in secret, but nonetheless, this is going to be happening soon. What do you think is going to happen once the red heifer is killed in this ceremony?
What do I think is going to happen? Well, first, I do think it's for sure going to happen. I think they're going to try it. They do have the altar. They really they think that this is necessary for them to purify the priests and the land so they can rebuild the third temple. Also, they believe they're in the times, like that. They say that all the pieces are in place. It looks like Gog and Magog, the end times, Armageddon, apocalyptic war between the East and the West, and Christianity and Islam is about to unfold. So red heifer, sacrifice it, burn it to ashes. They're going to mix it with water and a few other things, like some type of magic ritual. And then they're going to clean the priests, clean the land, and then it'll be able to, and then the Dome of the Rock needs to be destroyed somehow as well, or moved if they have some type of peace deal and normalization with Saudi Arabia. But that'll only happen if they have some type of peace deal, a peace covenant, like, which will make Christians think it's the fulfillment of their prophecy. And the Christians in power in America, the number one Christian religion is fundamentalist evangelical Christians in America. They believe that the Antichrist has to come before the second coming of Jesus. So in a way, in order for the Christian prophecies to be fulfilled, the Jews need to return to the land of Israel, rebuild their temple, anoint a Messiah, have the mark of the beast, try to have a one world religion, and then Jesus will return. So they need it to happen. Even if they think it's bad prophecy or it's satanic, it's still part of God's divine plan that they believe has to unfold before Jesus will ever return. So they're basically enabling the prophecies through their belief, through them affirming the prophecies, affirming the end times scenarios. Same with the Muslims too. Yep.
Would you think, so 3 candidates, you got Kennedy, Biden, Trump. Are any of them going to be any good when it comes to bringing peace? Do you think who would be best? I mean, do you back any one of them? Obviously not Biden, but
no, you can't back any of them. I mean, I think on Israel, Trump would be more pro-Israel than Biden would be if Biden would come back. But I think for sure Trump's getting back in. Trump and Kushner are going to get back in. He's going to be surrounded by a bunch of Christian Zionists, just like his last term. And his faith healers, his Christian prayer group, the Chabad Lubavitch, he'll have all those people all around him, just like last time. And it's going to be, Israel keeps escalating with Iran, and if Trump gets back in, he's portraying himself as the only one that can save us from World War III, like he's our savior. He's saying that he's going to take out the deep state and the cabal and defend Christianity. He markets himself. He thinks of himself as the savior of Israel, the protector of Israel, the best president for Israel ever. He'll be willing to start nuclear war before Israel is damaged in any way.
Scary.
Or attacked in any way. Sorry.
This is frightening, and it does seem like it's popping off very quickly. The Temple Mount itself, as you suggested, will have to be removed. It is like playing King of the Hill. A lot of people don't understand that the only site in Judaism which a temple can be constructed is currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock. And in order for Judaism to have a functioning religion, there must be a temple, which means the Dome of the Rock needs to be removed. There's a lot of discussion of how that might happen, whether it's going to be through peaceful means, as you suggested, that perhaps it would be moved to Saudi Arabia, or it could be another false flag where an Iranian rocket accidentally hits the Dome of the Rock, something like this. What do you think is going to happen there? How do you think the dome is going to be dropped?
There's a bunch of different ways they can do it. They can do with a missile. Um, they could blame it. It's interesting how is it going to be done and who are they going to blame it on too? Because there's been a Christian that tried to blow it up once that got arrested from America, a Christian also. There's been Jewish groups before that have, I think it was in 84, 82, had a plot to try to do it and they all got arrested. It used to be more of a fringe thing, but now it's becoming mainstream, the idea of rebuilding the temple. The Likud Netanyahu cabinet coalition is more pro-temple and religious extremist than they've ever been, people are saying. So they've got this big war, the war of sons of light and sons of darkness. The Temple Institute minted a coin in 2020 with Trump and Netanyahu called this War of the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness. The end time apocalyptic war that was found in the war scroll found at in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Qumran. And now it looks like Trump's going to get back in. They got this Iran, Russia, China, North Korea versus America, the West. Edom is the, like, to the T, the end times Gog and Magog prophecy. They've interpreted it with these countries playing these roles for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's all unfolding right now. And that's why they got the heifers. That's why they're all saying, they're chanting for "We want Moshiach now." They have prayer 3 times a day for the rebuilding of the temple. And I see them carrying it out. Look at all of our Christian politicians. They're all like close with all the Christian Zionist rabbis like John Hagee, like all of them, Trump, Pence, Pompeo, Nikki Haley, Ted Cruz, the new speaker, Mike Johnson. They're all in. Like that's American Christianity in the people in influence and control in politics in our country is hardcore Christian Zionists. Some of them are rapture fanatics influenced by the Left Behind series about the rapture by Tim LaHaye. The Council for National Policy that he founded is still highly influential with all these names and circles. And so it's like an end times death cult runs our country and is causing this conflict, this nuclear Holocaust potentially conflict all over the world, according to prophecies. Just the other day, Ehud Barak, the former prime minister in Israel, said Netanyahu is like held hostage and greatly influenced by all the extremist rabbis and ultra-Orthodox and Chabadniks that want to, quote, ignite the Middle East to usher in their Messiah. Like, this is no joke. We have a like Twilight Zone, like we're in a movie, a Judeo prophecy end times cult is in charge, and it's been the most dominant religion in the last 1,700 years.
That is some scary shit. When we had Scott Horton on, and he made a comment like, how much of this is just a control mechanism? He made the comment like, he doesn't even know if Netanyahu's actually Jewish, if he's just atheist, and this is all about control. The global elites just to control the world. Is there a chance that that's possible, you think?
Well, it's not just Netanyahu is using religion as a control system. Religion in itself is the control system. He would only be able to use it if there were, billions of sincere believers around the world. The only reason that we're electing all of these hardcore Christian Zionist politicians in Congress and in politics is because that's the most influential and popular religion in the country. So it all starts with getting the nations to worship the God of Israel and to want to impose the Davidic Messiah on the world. When they say Christ is king, every knee will bow. They're saying they want the Moshiach, the Torah prophetic from the prophecies of the nation of priests, the chosen people, to have all of the nations get rid of their idol worship and worship the God that chose them. That's the whole conspiracy and Torah blueprint, the script in a nutshell.
I think it's very strange, the hypocrisy where you look at the Jewish Messiah versus the Christian Antichrist, and you have the Texas rancher who raised the red heifers saying that this is God's will and that he's playing his part in this. It's more manifest destiny where there's people carrying out these prophecies and ultimately atrocities, where we have all of these religions culminating in a standoff. And when you have the hypocrisy between especially the Christian Zionists and the Jewish Zionists, where the Jewish Messiah is going to effectively bring peace on earth, rule from Jerusalem, have a one world government, where you look at the Christian Antichrist having the exact same qualifications and requirements, there is going to be conflict here at some point in time. It's going to be apparent that people aren't listening to God or Jesus, that this is either manifest destiny or just evil. How do you think this dance is going to play out? Can you point out the hypocrisies between the Jewish Messiah and the Christian Antichrist?
Yeah, it's like Christians are opposing the satanic antichrist beast system in the name of ushering in the Torah Messiah one world religion. So in the name of fighting the evil satanic one world government, one world religion, that's bad. But when it's the Davidic Torah Messiah, Jesus ruling, that's good. So at the end of the day, they're advocating for a one world religion led by the Messiah, but fighting the satanic one world religion. So it's all a dialectic. Satan is the adversary. It's like God's controlled opposition. He created him. He works for God. God doesn't destroy him. He allows him to operate and do what he does. And I don't think any of these are real. I'm just saying this is the way that the dialectic works out. So in the name of fighting the satanic antichrist, they're actually working to usher in the Davidic Messiah, rule over the world, every knee will bow. So Christians aren't opposing rabbis because they want their Messiah to conquer all the nations, because Christians want the same exact thing. According to the same prophecies, they want a Messiah, the Davidic Messiah, to rule over all the nations. So it's not like real opposition when they ultimately want almost the exact same thing, believe in the same nation of priest prophecies, and worship the God of Israel together. So it's like controlled opposition, like by definition.
What do you think will happen when the Jewish Messiah is named and he does not say that he's Jesus or God?
Is he not going to say he's Jesus or God? I think most likely somebody's going to come, and most Christians are going to think it's actually Jesus. They're going to convince, because Messianic Judaism is growing and Christianity is becoming more Judaized and kosher and Noahide compliant. They're trying to phase out the Trinity idea and have Unitarian, so Christianity is not idolatrous. And Christianity, actual Christianity, all the churches and all the influential pastors and priests and bishops, it's all not anti-Semitic anymore at all. It's all pro-Jewish. So I see it happening more that they're going to agree on a return of a Messiah together. And some people some Christians will think it's the Antichrist. I think that's more likely the situation than like some guy comes and it's just blatantly the Antichrist. It's like, yeah, never mind.
Okay, so with the Temple Mount, you have about 8 million Jews who are religiously zealot enough to try to take over the Temple Mount. There are 2 billion Muslims or more in the world that would be effectively called to action. The way that 8 million Jews take on 2 billion Muslims is with a Christian army. What do you think that the Muslim role is going to be in these coming events?
According to Kabbalah, Gog and Magog from Ezekiel 38 and 39 and Zechariah 14, I want to say, they are playing the role that they go to war with the West, that they fight each other, but also they have some alliance and turn against Israel, but then ultimately destroy each other. That's what all the Kabbalists and the rabbis and Chabad's website says. That's what they think is the role of Ishmael in versus Esau in the end times war, Christianity versus Islam, the East versus the West. So that's the role. Also, they see rabbis view Islam as almost a perfectly Noahide compliant religion, because they don't believe they do believe in Jesus as a Messiah and a prophet that's going to return and defeat the Antichrist, the Dajjal, but they don't believe Jesus is God. So it's not idolatrous because to believe God can be a man is considered idolatrous, and that's what makes it not Noahide compliant. They also don't have graven images as well. They believe in the oneness of God and no graven images, and they adopted the role of the Arabs being Ishmael from and that was the original identification that they had from the Jews, and then they adopted that role. They also believe in the same God of Abraham. So Maimonides, the top rabbi in all of Judaism, almost 1,000 years ago, said that both Christianity and Islam are like God's divine plan to wean the pagan world off of their gods and get them to almost be perfect Noahides, worshiping the God of Israel, which was the whole objective in the Torah of the nation of priests. Their mission as the nation of priests is to get all the nations to worship their God. And they largely did it with Christianity and Islam, half the world.
Let's talk about your book for a second here. What are the origins of Christianity? Who was Jesus as a person? And what role did Paul play in Christianity?
I'm a mythicist. I don't believe Jesus was a historical figure. I believe he was fabricated, whole cloth, invented from a close reading of the Old Testament scriptures. You could very easily read out the whole story of Jesus, the fundamental foundations of the whole Jesus story, just from relating a couple similar passages in Daniel 7 and 9, Isaiah 52, 53, and all throughout Isaiah, Psalms 2, 22, 110, and many others all throughout the Psalms. It's basically a fan fiction Bible code, like myth, a fan fiction myth, where they had all the prophecies, they had all the scriptures. They're searching the scriptures, the Old Testament, for secrets, hidden mysteries that could be revealed through the correct interpretation and exegesis. This was traditional Judaism at the time. This is what we see done in the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is what we see at Nag Hammadi and in the Apocrypha, creating myths, fake fulfilling myths of a Messiah from the scriptures, from the Old Testament. I think that's the prophecy deception. So Jesus was first envisioned as a celestial angel that did this sacrifice in heaven. That was Paul's gospel. Paul, all the earliest layers of the New Testament is not the Gospels. Those are decades later. It was Paul's letters, Hebrews, 1st and 2nd Peter, probably Jude. And in all of those, there's no earthly Jesus. There's no preacher. It definitely seems like they're alluding to a celestial, cosmic, like divine figure. All the most books of the Old Testament and earliest books are letters from Paul, and he never even knew Jesus. He never met him. He said, he adamantly insists that he saw Jesus through scriptures and revelations, through mystical experience, through dreams, through visions. And this is typical, basically proto-Kabbalah. It's Merkava mysticism from Ezekiel's chariot, the ascension. And so they had these ascension experiences, dreams, reading the scriptures, and that's where they first invented this mythical cosmic Messiah. And then later in the Gospels, they euhemerized him, they placed him into history, and then rewriting Old Testament stories, taking pagan myths, incorporating pagan myths as well, and fulfilling prophecy. That's what Mark did, the first gospel. Matthew and Luke copied and expanded on that. John came in later and disregarded lots of it, but it kind of did his own thing. And that's kind of how it was constructed and it started. As a Jewish sect, by the way, also, probably the James and Paul, the Ebionites, James the Just, the Zedek, the righteous one, the Essene sects, Qumran. I think that's the milieu that it evolved out of.
Some of the dogma surrounding Jesus, he was born of a virgin, died, was resurrected. There are other figures throughout history, including Mithras, that was popular in Rome, also at the time when Christianity was kind of being baked in its early theology. What other types of influences were put into Christianity? What other types of figures were borrowed through history to culminate and shape the Jesus figure?
The most that I've seen is probably Dionysus. That's the most parallels. Dionysus had a ritual with bread and wine. Also, he's the god of what is it? Wheat in grapes, something like that. And actually, the Last Supper is really interesting. Another reason that I don't believe in a historical Jesus is because the earliest source we have for the Last Supper is actually called the Lord's Supper in Paul's letters. And Paul wasn't in attendance of the Last Supper. He didn't learn about it from anybody that was there. He learned it from revelation. And he's really just doing a retelling of the Passover Seder. And he doesn't talk about where it's at, when it was at, who was actually there. Doesn't talk about the disciples all being there. And that's where it started as a mythological tale that people added and expanded and changed things as it evolved over time and developed.
I grew up Lutheran, and I thought Jesus was so cool. He could heal people and snap his fingers and make food. I thought that, those are the coolest superpowers. If Jesus was a real person, I think the person that is presented in the New Testament is a revolutionary, one who brings love and peace, one who was opposed to the temple priests who were engaging in usury and all kinds of other supremacist action. What role do you see Jesus playing as like good in your life? Or is there anything that any teachings from Jesus that you take and implement in your life today?
I think forgiveness may be one. Some things, sometimes forgiveness is the right move to do. Not always, though. But maybe that's, the golden rule, which I wouldn't attribute to Jesus. I think that's just universal and it predated Jesus, but that's another one. In fact, Jesus kind of gets it backwards because what is it? Treat others as you want to be treated. That's the way the Christian says it. And it's funny, the rabbis always like to brag that their rabbi Hillel actually created that, and he did it better. It was don't treat others as you don't want to be treated, which is a little better because some people like sick stuff, so you wouldn't want them doing sick stuff to you. Some people self-emulate and some people inflict harm on themselves. You wouldn't want that on you, right?
Yes. Yeah. So Adam, I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there any others? There's some bad ones. I think there's a lot of teachings of Jesus that can be easily interpreted to be really bad, like putting Jesus over your own family, hating the world, not loving the world, like stuff like that can create problems. And has. Go ahead.
I'm going to backtrack just a bit and go back to 9/11. What are your thoughts? What happened on 9/11, and what role, in your opinion, did Israel play in that event?
Well, there's rabbis in a Chabad article on their website that says that it was predicted in the Zohar, and that was the kickoff of the downfall of Edom with these 3 buildings coming down. That's what it says in the Zohar. In the biggest city of Edom, which they view Edom as the West and New York as that big city. A top Christian Zionist / rabbi in America, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, wrote a best-selling Christian book, Harbinger, and it goes into all these different esoteric biblical ways that 9/11 was the fulfillment of prophecy. So that's where I see the motive of the whole big picture. It obviously, Netanyahu had been writing books on war with Islam and war on terrors from the 90s, and he even said in Congress that sometimes America needs to be bombed into going to war. So getting us to go into wars for them against radical Islam, against Muslim countries like Iraq that were just recently bombing them in the 90s. I see that's who benefited. That's who had the incentive. That's who had the means when you look into it, and all the players, Silverstein and Netanyahu and the people at the Port Authority and the people in the investigation, you know.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, that about sums it up. I've done many videos on this. You can search every 9/11 now. I always do a video and get into some of the new developments or interesting stuff. But
what do you think about Captain Dan Hanley and the uninterruptible autopilot? Do you feel like that's a potential?
I think autopilot could have been a potential. There's something interesting that there was a clip of Bush like denying that airplanes had autopilot, or admitting that they had autopilot, and then it's something that they were trying to deny or something like that. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the autopilot thing. That's not been like my area of focus. Mine's more like the religious connections and some of the players, but not so much like exactly how they did the airplanes. I feel like that's, kind of side issues and missing the mark from like the root cause, the root issue.
Right.
Let's pick apart Christian Zionism for a second. Where do you think that the justification or the authority comes where pastors are saying we must support Israel as they bomb Palestinian Christians? Where do you think that authority comes from? And do you feel that there's a contradiction there, or do you think that's legit gospel?
Well, there is no legit gospel, because just like there's no real Christianity, because Christianity isn't real. The Bible is so open to interpretation. That's why there's so many different denominations. Even the believers that believe in the Bible as the word of God still can't agree on what it says. That shows it's inherently flawed. But basically, so if Christianity isn't real Christianity is just like whatever Christianity is having effect on the real world. So the greatest effect it's having is all Christian Zionists that believe you're blessed if you bless them, cursed if you curse them, that they're the chosen people living in the Holy Land, and they're central to the theology of Christians. Christianity wouldn't exist if they didn't fulfill the prophecy, rejecting their Messiah so their transgression could open up salvation to the Gentiles. Like it says in John, Jesus says, salvation is of the Jews. Our salvation comes from them. The Christians all believe in their covenant, believe that they were once chosen or still are chosen. And this is why they're able to leverage this, to brainwash people, to politically control them. And there'll always be Christians saying, well, they're not real Christians. All the Christians with all the money and all the influence and all the power that are getting their agenda pushed through. You can say they're not real Christians, but that is just textbook no true Scotsman fallacy, saying that you can never criticize the whole thing, because you can always just go, well, that's not a real Christian. That's not a real Christian. The Christian Zionists say that the Christian anti-Semites online, they're not the real Christian. Replacement theology Christians, oh, those are satanic Christians. That's what they'll say. So everybody calling everybody else satanic, thinking they have the true message of God. I'm an agnostic, but I know for a fact anybody claiming that they're chosen by God or can speak for God, or that they live in the land's God's holy special place, are bullshitting, and they're just trying to control you. At least that's how it started.
So, okay, with the Temple Mount, now, do you think that Trump is going to be the Gematria numerology 24? Do you think that he's going to assist with the building, that there's going to be peace on earth afterwards? Or do you think that he's going to be more of an antichrist figure and create all kinds of wars and calamities?
It's such like a weird synchronicity that you mentioned the Trump 424 Gematria, because I was just thinking about that yesterday and had forgot, but April 24th is about to come up, and also Passover is about to start as well on today. So Passover, we're having a 424 Trump's Gematria, and now people are probably thinking I sound crazy talking about numerology and Gematria, but they believe it very strongly. And tell me this is a coincidence, but There's a secret recording of Chabad rabbis, Ukrainian Chabad rabbis, saying that Trump's name in gematria and numerology, when you add up all the letters, equals Moshiach ben David, the Messiah that they're waiting for. And the top prophets that all of these Christians and prophets and QAnon people that all worship Trump as a messianic figure, Kim Clement, he supposedly had this prophecy that Trump would have 2 terms, defeat the deep state and the darkness, and be a new King David. It's how they all been calling Trump, their new King David. So the Davidic Messiah. And the rabbis are calling Trump the Messiah of Edom. And that is the Messiah. It comes out of Edom, but then he destroys Edom. That is what the Messiah does. He's connected to the destruction of Edom, which they view as Western civilization and America. But so Trump 424, Jerusalem time 424, when he goes and touched the wall, famously the first sitting president to ever touch the Western Wall in Israel, as soon as he touched it, the clock turned to 424, and that's his special gematria number that connects him to the Messiah. So this is what they're all saying. I didn't come up with this. This is just what they're all saying. What do you guys think?
No, I think you're right on. I think that there is this type of research and understanding of the numerology, the gematria, and they use that understanding to try to create the conditions. In Judaism, for their Messiah, there's a Messiah that is present in every generation. It's just the political conditions on the ground need to be right. And that's what we're seeing being created in front of us. It's just being done in various means, and people are being pulled by their religion to support this. And that's where I think picking apart some of the teachings in Christianity, there are some sects of Christianity that think we're in a post-millennial reign and that we don't need to do anything, that we kind of are living on peace on earth, and we should just kind of go about our lives. And there are others who are, evangelical Zionists who want to usher in the end times. And that's where I think picking apart the New Testament, the Old Testament, and trying to get people to understand that we don't need to kill people to have peace on earth. I think that's where, my message is. That's where I'm trying to promote, this show and you. But I think when we actually come down to this, we're going to need to act. We're going to need to take action. We are educating folks, but we do have a federal government that is religious. We have a religious foreign policy. We have a Zionist foreign policy. We have a secular state. I believe in God, but I don't want to kill anyone. So what does that lead me to do with my tax dollars when I have the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, saying the Bible told him to fund these wars? Do you think we have a secular state? How do we get a secular state?
You can have a secular state and it can be dominated by religious people if there's freedom of religion. So we kind of have both. We've got a bunch of religious people running the government that are working for it in a secular system, basically. So I think they should be barred from office. I think people that believe in apocalyptic prophecy, death cults that are worshiping a foreign land and a foreign people. I mean, I don't mean it should be a law, but the public needs to be educated and not be brainwashed and it's fear to convince people when you use that you're going to be cursed if you don't bless a foreign people. I mean, that's brainwashing. That's mind control. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's using coercion and fear to get you to politically support a thing, a country, a people.
Yeah, they propagandize from every angle. They brainwash. Television programming has been going on for decades. Most people don't pay attention to anything going on politically. They're busy, soccer moms. They're, everyone's sick and dumb, to a certain degree. But are we just screwed? I mean, is the Samson option on the table? What if put on your speculation hat? What's going to happen in the next year? Do you think we're going to have World War III? Are we doomed?
don't know about next year. I don't think it's inevitable, but there's certainly a possibility that when Trump gets back in, like, the House just funded this new bill for more funding for Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel. So they're right there, the three hot spots. They believe Gog and Magog is that there's a Kabbalah belief that there's three Gog and Magog wars. So that would be World War I, World War II, and World War III. And speaking of gematria, October 7th was what was it, right before or right after the day of Sukkot, which is a Jewish holiday where the gematria equals Gog and Magog. So that famous October 7th day, the rabbis are all associating with their holiday, where they sacrifice 70 bulls representing the 70 nations, all of the non-Jewish world that have war against each other in Gog and Magog.
Wow.
I did a video when it happened. I can't remember now if it was the first day or the last day.
So the Gog and Magog war, the lands of Armageddon, this is happening again. Folks think that this is going to happen, that it's real. They're reading this in the Bible, and they're making plans to physically enact this war. It's going to be incredibly dangerous. It's something like 70-80% of the population dies. And if you've seen the Vatican Hall and the sculpture of Jesus in the background rising from a nuclear holocaust, that seems like hell on earth. I don't want to bring about any of those conditions. How do we go about preventing this? What type of activism do you partake in?
Exposing the greatest deception of the last 2,000 years, the prophecy deception. The idea that they're chosen by God, the nation of priests, to speak for God, and they have the power of predicting the future. It's like predictive programming. It gets people to accept a predetermined outcome. People work towards it and self-fulfill it, and by their belief manifest it, or at the very least they sit back and don't stop something because they think it's God's divine plan and prophecies unfolding. So Christianity is a prophecy deception. The Jesus deception, the Messiah deception, is based on the prophecies of a Messiah, and they just fabricated a whole story where all of these 300 prophecies of Jesus supposedly fulfilled in the New Testament. They go, it's statistically impossible. We have an ancient story with no extra biblical validation of corroboration. We have a obviously mythical story of all these fulfilled prophecies. They had all the prophecies beforehand. It's not hard to write a story fulfilling everything. That's the obvious explanation. They just concocted a savior from the scriptures in a midrash. They call it midrash. There's even a term for it. It was like a common thing back then. And it's way more likely, no magic required, that's how it started, instead of, oh, they're really chosen, they really have a covenant, they really have prophecies, and this magical superhero 2,000 years ago showed up and fulfilled all these things, checking each one off of the list, checking the box off the list after he does all of these things, like rides in on a donkey and born of a virgin and asks for something to drink on the cross. Like every little detail is clearly mythological, clearly inspired from somewhere else, symbolic fiction. That's what it is.
You mentioned predictive programming. The lone gunman predicted 9/11. What do you think is behind the predictive programming aspect? Do you think there's a religious requirement to disclose the activity?
I've said that before, and I've heard that theory and wondered if that's true, but I haven't seen any concrete evidence as to why they do that. My best guess would be it's just like it's a psychological trick. There's a book I read once called Pre-Suasion, how you can pre-influence people for something. So if you have a end times plan, you've got to plan. You plan not in the short term, but in millennia, and with this blueprint, the script of the prophecies from the Torah and the Old Testament. So putting certain things out there conditions people to like accept them or think about them in a certain way. So it's a form of like subliminal messaging to pre-suade people is the best way I've explained it. And as far as like prophecy, it's like it's easy to fulfill prophecy after things already happen. Like in the Gospels, Jesus predicts that the temple will be destroyed. Like that's not hard to do when it's authored after the temple was destroyed. Things like that. The book of Daniel, also that Christianity is largely dependent on, is for prophecy and for quote mining scripture. The book of Daniel is a known forgery as well that did the same thing. Claimed to be way older than it was, so he had prophecies that they already knew happened, the author already knew happened. So this is just like a parlor trick. They don't have magical powers, they don't have the power of prophecy. They're using this prophecy deception to trick people that they have magical powers, basically. It's one way to look at it.
Agreed. Do you think that there's any current predictive programming that might be going on? The Left Behind series, what other types of messaging are you monitoring?
A lot. Very good question, too. I love this. There's a Civil War movie out right now in theaters. Dune 2 just came out. Dune 3 is about to, Dune 2, spoiler alert, is about like a messianic prophecies being fulfilled in an apocalyptic war. They're coming out with part be called Dune the Messiah. So messianic prophecies, apocalyptic wars. We had the Netflix Obama, like what is it called? This is the End or something like that.
Leave This World Behind or something.
Leave This World Behind, something like that. That's about like an end times Gog and Magog war between. They make it seem like it's China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, all of this axis of Gog and Magog attacking America, and our comms are down and everything, chaos. So there's a lot of that. Yeah. Trying to think of any others off the top of my head, but do you guys know of any? What do you think?
No, I think that Left Behind series, especially where they're going through the requirements of the Antichrist with fine detail and really kind of painting the picture of what that might look like. I heard you say before that it could be an Elon Musk type character. I agree. It is going to be someone who there's a lot of public faith in, that behind the scenes has been dastardly all along. I think that could happen at any time, and that's where, I think this is incredibly dangerous. And the more education and understanding people have in this area can help prevent, hopefully, World War III. If folks are telling their pastors they don't want their kids going off to die for Israel or killing Palestinian Christians, I think that we're going to have a better world, and people just need to understand that there is a world outside of their religious dogma, and that people genuinely do want to have peaceful existences and raise their families instead of engaging in their tax money and their blood and treasure to fund foreign wars that are very biblical in nature, with what I think is an incorrect understanding of the Bible and of what God's teaching would be to humanity. And that's where I think, again, your work is incredibly important. What do you have coming down the pike for us? Tell us when do you expect to have your book out? What other projects are you working on?
I'm doing the same as usual. A few news live streams a week. I do deep dive, deeply researched presentations as well, like documentary presentations. I'm still doing the rabbi compilations and the compilations for social media. I've got the book, The Jesus Deception. Everything that I want in it is basically in there. I'm just going to edit it down and should be ready hopefully soon. In that, I'm going to show how Jesus was constructed, how I think he started, the connections to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the debate that's been having between historicists that believe in historical Jesus and mythicists, and analyzing some of their arguments that are at the crux of the issue. That's basically what the book's going to be about. And it's going to talk about how Christianity is a controlled opposition mechanism as well, that angle of it. It's going to be really epic. That's why it's taken a long time. And so, yeah, that's about it. I do interviews as well. I interview other people. Debates. I do a lot of debates. I got a debate on Thursday. I had 2 big debates last week, debating Christians or rabbis about any of this Abrahamic nonsense. I do debate a bunch of Muslims on Spaces, on my friends' Spaces all the time as well. They all have like the same arguments and the same copes, really, and they're all enabling each other. It's so amazing to look at it from the outside. The control dialectic, all in the Abrahamic matrix, like they really enable each other.
Adam, where would you align yourself like politically? Do you feel like, I kind of adhere to like a anarcho-capitalist view or voluntarist. Do you feel like these elections are selections? Is it worth even voting? Any comments on that?
I mean, they're definitely selections to a degree. It depends on what you mean by selections. But like just the fact on who the way the media can decide largely who the candidates are going to be by who they cover, who they give exposure to, when they attack them, what their attacks are, when they, or who they promote, who the lobbies promote. It's definitely selection. Always the selection is going to be the two-party dictatorship at the end of the day. And I can't align with either one of them. Some issues I'm on one side, some issues I'm on the other, and neither of them, I can't identify with either one of them.
Consider COVID and all these world wars. Is there an orchestration to depopulate?
I think in certain places more than others. In Western countries, they've been pushing human, fear-mongering about overpopulation. But yeah, for sure. You look at what all the elites are saying and what Bill Gates is saying. They definitely want less people and are pushing the narrative that we're overpopulated. The end times, the culling at the end times with these wars where all these people suffer and die according to the prophecies. Plagues are also a part of the end times agenda, the birth pangs of the Moshiach, famines, plagues, wars, those sorts of things. If they have their way, if the end times fanatics have their way and continue on the path we're on, that's what the future may hold.
That's unfortunate. I got 3 little boys. Gunnar's got a couple little boys at home. We do not want war. We want peace, and it's frightening. It's not the world I want my kids to grow up in.
Yeah. How crazy does it have to be with Trump and the Zionists he's going to surround himself with when the Israel-Iran thing escalates a little more? Like real quick, Russia could get in, China could get in, and it could just be very dangerous. Like, do you trust Trump to actually save us from World War III, or does he seem like the kind of guy that it's going to be the final president and oversee the destruction and the fall of America, Edom, according to their prophecies?
I don't trust any politicians, and that won't be popular for a lot of the folks watching the Truth Expedition, a lot of Trump lovers. But I don't trust any politicians at all. I trust people I know. I think they're all bought, paid for, or manipulated, or controlled, Epsteined. I don't know what to think. I think we've been lied to about so much of what's happening in the world, so I don't trust any of it. Thoughts,
it's been a long time since the neocons have been agitating for a war with Iran. I don't think that Trump has the ability to hold off on that. I think that he's a nationalist president, which is, good for some things. I think a lot of people thought that there was going to be global war when he was elected. Instead, he shook hands with the dictator of North Korea. That was a powerful moment. I think a lot of people had some hope there, but I think in terms of Israel, he'll give them a blank check, and I think that he will start a war with Iran. And I think there's going to be dangerous times ahead. And that's where, again, this message is incredibly important.
And it's like if Israel felt like they were really threatened, there's lots of different ways I'm sure they have planned where they could get us to support them. You know what I mean? There's plenty of things, how much have we heard about how our border's so open and there could be Hamas and Hezbollah and Iranian terror cells all throughout America? Ready to attack. Something like that could happen. You think Trump's going to sit back and not do anything, not escalate big time on Iran?
Right. I think there will be some kind of false flag like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's coming. And that's where, again, just being aware of what's happening and being aware of the pitfalls. If if this really is God's plan that he organizes these religions together so that we can all kill each other, I just would like to wait for clarification before we actually go ahead and do that. And that's where that's where my motivations lie. I would like to prevent this as much as I can. So I appreciate your role in doing this, Mark, as well. I think that these are crazy times ahead of us, and we need to be mindful and watchful.
Yeah, and Max Blumenthal made the comment, like, Israel's dug itself a hole financially. They're struggling. Seemingly, much of the world is against what they're doing. So they're going to have to pull some strings to get, support. And what will that be? I don't know.
Yeah, these are certainly tricky times, but nonetheless, I do have hope for, the younger generations. I think that they're starting to wake up. I think that the more people are exposed to adult, nuanced conversations about these real world events, people are starting to understand the way that they've been misled. And, that's, again, what we're trying to do is to educate folks. And we really appreciate your role in this.
Yeah, we appreciate you giving us your time today, Adam. I appreciate everything you do, your insight. It's valuable.
Great. Thanks, guys. It's good to meet you, and I'm happy you guys are seeing through the deception, seeing through the actual waking up to the matrix, which is the institutional religious control system that has in our faces, hidden in plain sight, the greatest book ever printed, most translations, and the whole blueprint is there. And what kind of God plans antichrist takeovers and plans apocalyptic end times wars with all these people that are trying to believe in him? It's
right.
Preposterous, it's
right.
dangerous, it's absurd. And I do hope for the future. I'm trying to educate people as much as possible. So, but which is kind of scary. Their backs are against the wall now. Time is not on their side. And when the fullness of the Gentiles comes in, and people are not believing anymore, that's when the end will come, as it says in Luke. So it is dangerous times, and I appreciate you guys helping me sound the alarm and spread the message about this stuff.
Absolutely. So thanks, everybody. You can follow Adam's work, No More News. Again, that's KNOW. If you search on Rumble, No More News, you'll find his work. Thanks for tuning into the Truth Expedition. Don't tread on me and do not shed on me.